Hey, I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. Give this video a like. Tell your friends.
Check out our podcast below in the description as well.
All right. The Warriors were really bad this year, John. They got the second pick. We'll find out if they trade it. A lot of NBA writing right now when it comes to the draft. The Warriors are a central part of this. Should they trade it? Should they use it? We talked about Joel Embiid. You cannot deny they have a trade chip here, right? Enough of a trade chip that it made being terrible worth it?
Well, they were really terrible, guy. I mean, they had the worst record in the NBA. They were so shitty that they were and they were rightfully so. Guy, they didn't go make it to the bubble. Like, how would you describe their season? Be like, well, 22 teams went to the bubble and the Warriors were not one of them.
Not even
Like,
close to being
yeah,
one of them.
not like the Hawks, like the Knicks, like that. The Warriors were shittier than them. To me, the way it played out, and Steph broke his hand, right? It's not like they rested Steph the majority of the game. Like, he's had a broken hand. Clay had a torn ACL. Once they put all their chips on the table, you and I watched the lottery live. I would say if they would have ended up with like the fifth or fourth pick, probably even the third we could argue, but the fourth or fifth would have felt like it was not worth it. Third, still pretty good. I'd say the first ideal, second pretty damn good though. Second to me, you still feel pretty good about having a very embarrassing season. That was justified, right? Kevin left, Clay's hurt, Steph shatters his hand, Draymond kind of over it. Everyone
you
just
do the
hates
D'Angelo Russell, then you move him right for Andrew Wiggins.
But at the end of you said, listen, we had the shittiest season. The owner kept saying, you guys know I'm not cheap. I'm not trying to fuck you. We're not messing around. This is a short-term deal. You end up with a second pick, and I think everyone goes, the Warriors, and you keep reading all these articles. John Hollinger is writing on The Athletic. I know Ethan and Kawakami and all these guys are writing about it. We do know that they will take a swing. Now, whether they actually something comes to fruition, Ben Simmons, Embiid, to me, those guys would almost have to demand a trade. I think Giannis would 100% have to go Anthony Davis and demand to the Warriors, which is unlikely. But they're going to be in Beal. They're going to be sniffing around, and at least they have something in the second pick and the Timberwolves pick next year, because they're going to stink, to just be in conversations, right? And it's not they got nothing.
Because I think that, and I saw who wrote this the other day, that they were making the case that like having the second pick's better than the first pick because the first pick there's too much pressure. I mean, ultimately, I don't think GMs internally maybe some people.
Bob Myers I saw disagreed because he thought you always want to control the draft.
There's no way I would agree with that. That is a loser's mentality. Like, well, I don't want the first pick because I do think if you're a GM, even if you think this draft is down, you do have to think what I said the other day, which is you think this is just gonna be a draft with no good players in it? Like 5 years we'll look back and be like, draft sucked, total wash. Usually doesn't work like that. Maybe we have no information. LaMelo Ball played 10 Australian games before he got hurt in January or December, whatever it was. James Wiseman played against Oregon and then was done. Anthony Edwards played for Georgia and didn't play in anything meaningful, right?
There's nothing like the sweet future NBA guy going to random SEC school. You're like, oh, he went to Kentucky? No, he went to LSU. You're like, what? Ben Simmons or Georgia?
LSU gets a ton of guys.
Something shady went down.
How about let me watch some of these Israeli league games and I'll scout Killian Hayes or the other guy they got from Israel. So the point is, the problem might be that everyone sucks, but it's probably more that the problem is we just don't know who's good. In other words, if you're a GM, you go, maybe I can find the guy that's really good at number 2. I got a good shot at it. So it's a valuable pick.
Would their trade chip be that much exponentially better if the pick was 1 and not 2?
It depends, right? If there's a team out there that has a guy targeted
and loves Wiseman, loves Anthony Edwards,
we just need LaMelo Ball, right?
Yeah. So that would be better. Now, you could argue, depending on who the Timberwolves end up taking, that guy that team wants still might be there, right?
Sure.
I think James Wiseman is the next so-and-so.
Yeah.
I think the problem the Warriors are going to encounter is that it's just become a wing league. And someone texted me this the other night, and they actually had a good point. They're like, the irony about the Warriors? They actually don't, because I was like, God, I'm watching the Rockets gun all these threes, and they were missing a bunch. And some people were tweeting at me like, the irony about the Rockets, they don't even have that many good 3-point shooters, right? The one thing about the Mavericks, like they do have a lot of 3-point shooters. The Warriors, while they have two of the most historic 3-point shooters of all time, obviously the best one ever. And listen, for my money, when he's on, I'd probably take Klay over Steph, as crazy as that sounds. But they don't have that much 3-point shooting beside those guys. Draymond stinks at 3-point shooting. Wiggins is a terrible shooter. Like they aren't like the Splash Bros can shoot, but they don't have all these other guys, right? So they actually need some 3-point shooting because that's clearly where the league, which they set the tone. But like part of losing Kevin Durant was you just had a 7-foot Klay and Steph, right? Like that's a big fucking loss. This team really hasn't played together because they haven't all been together because they were injured without him. Like you do need to. That guy is missing, and now you replace it with Wiggins, who is just who knows. I mean, how it's going to look when he's your fourth, fifth guy. Maybe it's not as bad, but he's not a 3-point shooter. Kind of like remember Harrison Barnes back, and Harrison was a really good defender and could rebound, but he was a terrible shooter. Or they definitely didn't feel comfortable enough with him. Like that. Like, can you take James Wiseman? Now, I did see James Wiseman shot like a half-court three the other day, just from not like a, you're playing knockout, but just standing there, a jump shot, hits the three, and as the ball's in the air, turns around, arms up, and it was like an Instagram, and people were like, "Third splash, bro." If he can't
everyone's
shoot,
quick for a third splash, bro. Like most spates.
I just think it gets put so quickly on all these stretch bigs that are forced to shoot threes. Like, how many of them are actually good at it?
Yeah, and there are people that think he is. A lot of people, I think, popular opinion on Wiseman is that he's not a stretch five. He's just a five, right?
Yeah, and do you want five? Now, I'm watching the Utah Jazz. Like, Rudy Gobert has been pretty good, and he's a true center, right? He ain't shooting. He's really just catching lobs and blocking shots. And I'm watching him against Jokic, who's one of the best players in the league. Like, fuck, this guy's pretty good.
Yeah, are you a plotter or are you athletic?
Yeah. Which Wiseman, no one questions, like, he's an athlete.
He's an athlete,
right?
Yeah.
Is the game just going to turn into every team with every guy at 6'7"? Like, there's just no place for the guy 7 feet tall anymore, unless you're Kevin Durant, right? Like that can't be
but the question's about value, right?
But my take is, though, on this pick, like if you just say stay there, I think the most potential upside in the James Wiseman, the pushback, and I understand it, is just like you can't take a big. Well, I'm watching some of these teams have some big, like Anthony Davis is, pretty unique big.
Yeah, but right, but you're the part of the question is
like you already have Steph and Klay, and Draymond's a pretty unique chess piece, right?
Yeah.
He's not just your typical plotting guy.
I think the other benefit of this year is Steph. Have you seen some of the Steph videos that have been out there
of him shooting around?
Just like not that. I mean, I shouldn't be overly impressed by Steph shooting around, but just new moves he's pulling, like these turnaround jumpers. He's like almost like extended wing post up turnaround catch and shoots. Like it's just. Is he going to come back while everyone's forgetting about him?
I think we got the Splash Bros coming back on a mission.
Well, I'm with you. I don't think there's any question.
I think Mike Mayock said Nelson Aguilar's on a mission right now. That feels like a stretch, but I'd say Steph and Klay. Every video I've ever seen of Klay for the last 6 months has just been like, oh, there's Sam Darnold and Josh Allen shooting threes in L.A. Is that Klay Thompson with him? He's just hooping.
Well, when I was in Pullman, Washington for the Klay Thompson jersey retirement game, right?
Yeah.
Klay goes to practice the day before. He's just shooting. He just clearly missed basketball. Like you remember
while
seeing
they
the
were
highlights?
practicing, he was on the
Yeah,
side.
he went to practice, not on the side. He just walked out there because practice basically got stopped when he showed up and never resumed. But Klay shooting in what looks like Anta Timberlands, basically. I don't even know what the shoes were. Just had to shoot. Just loves basketball more than anybody loves basketball.
Well, think about this just in itself. In the Western Conference, how many duos would you take over those two guys next year? I'd take them over Harden and Russell. I would take them over Luka and Porzingis.
LeBron and Anthony.
To me, that's the one argument. I'd take them over Kawhi and Paul George because Paul George clearly the fourth best.
Dame and McCollum.
I'd take that. I've seen that rodeo, right? So they're duo. And then Draymond is kind of this weird curveball. Could he get... He'll never be what he was in 15, but can he be 85% of it and still be good in big games? Because you do trust him in big games. Can he stay healthy and just be in good shape? He's a great facilitator. I saw his mom Instagrammed. He was in the facility yesterday shooting threes. Like he does just need to become like he can't shoot 10%, right? Because the last couple, like no one even went over there.
Yeah, yeah.
He needs to at least just become credible. Which I was at Game 7 of the finals when LeBron won. Remember he hit like 7 threes? He had 32 points, I think, in the game. He was the only guy hitting shots.
He was fantastic.
Now, he doesn't need to be the third splash bro, but if he could just hit
He needs to. You have to guard him.
To be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he went from he was a 39% 3-point shooter in the 2015-2016 season.
I saw Brett Brown.
He was under 30 the last 2 years.
When Brett Brown got fired, he said, "Yeah." They asked him like, "What was the biggest problem this year?" He's like, "Well, when we got so big, we didn't have any shooting. Our spacing, we had no space on the court." And that's what makes the Warriors so unique with Steph, Clay, and Kevin. It was like guys all over the place. With Clay and Steph, it shrinks a little bit, right? If you have Draymond and Wiseman out there and Wiggins.
But it's not even fair to compare anything to what Steph, Clay, and Kevin were, right?
No, but my point is like that. I think the Kevin thing, and I think about this sometimes, is a massive loss. Like that, they did play with that guy for the last 3 years.
Well,
right?
He was their best player, right?
Yes. With a guy that has 2 MVPs.
Now, maybe that means Steph will become like Steph. I do think Steph's individual stuff suffered with Kevin.
Would you say that Steph has the momentum because he disappeared, so he's kind of starting back at ground zero? Huge season, another MVP?
I do think he has MVP possibilities, yes, because, yes.
Yeah.
In large part because he's
if they
good
win
enough.
55 games and he's just kicking everyone's ass.
People don't know what to make of them,
Yeah.
And people have
because
seen
I don't
what
think
it looks
everyone's
like.
going to be like Warriors championship, right? So
No.
he comes, he averages 32,
Exactly.
32 and 10.
And everyone's going to be watching them always. There's not going to be anything that he does where it's like, God, the national media didn't notice. You're not going to have that conversation.
No, they'll get maxed out.
Let us know what you think down in the comments below.